Hello, welcome to well, I was going to say Our Bookshop, but I'm at home here. Welcome to Tring, I would say. I'm in Tring. Jules is in Tring. Ericka, where are you?
Brighton. But Brighton. I come from Tring though, so spiritually I'm with you.
We can cover that off. I'm sure Jules will have a question about that. But it was Berkhamsted as well, wasn't it? And Sarra, where are you zooming from?
I'm in Muswell Hill.
Muswell Hill. Now you win the prize for the coolest place and, quite frankly, the coolest backdrop.
Yeah.
I hope their books
I
are not
bought it on Amazon.
Did you? No, you didn't. There is a company somewhere near Bristol, I think, who sell secondhand books, literally just providing bookshelves for people. But good, getting lots of lovely comments. Hi, it's Jen, Michael, Joshua, and Herbie.
That's my brother Michael, who lives in Tring.
Hello, Michael. I trust you know the bookshop. I'm sure I know you. Hello, Brido from James.
That's my husband. He's upstairs. My lovely Anne Henderson is actually wanting to say Manchester is cool as well.
Fantastic. Right, listen, let's pull you into line and let's get started. But so for Ericka, this is a debut novel. Well done. That's fantastic. For Sarra, you're more of an old hand with this whole publishing malarkey. This isn't quite such a special event for you, is it? Is it?
No, but it's nice to celebrate with Ericka on her special day.
Thank you, Sarra.
It's wonderful. And I tell you what, we've got hidden in the background, if you'd like to reveal yourself, Kirsty.
So well done.
Kirsty is Ericka's editor, and Kirsty has very kindly offered to say a few words, just because it's such an important event for Ericka. So Kirsty, can I hand over to you?
Yes, thank you very much, Ben, and thank you so much to Ben and the Tring Bookshop for hosting this. We would love to be doing all of this in person, and a big thank you just to Tring and all the bookshops that have kept us afloat during lockdown and given us hope. When I first read Ericka's manuscript, it was wonderful because it was sent to me by an agent who is friends with a person I used to work with, who said, if you've got a book about dogs, you've got to send it to Kirsty, because I absolutely adore dogs, as you can tell by my jumper. And when I started reading this manuscript, it was just perfect because it makes you laugh out loud and it makes you cry, and the dogs are brilliant in it because they sort of encapsulate what we see in their companionship, but it is really also about the connections that humans make. And just earlier today, Ericka and I were talking about how we find it easier to talk to people if they've got a dog, because you can just say, oh, your dog's lovely, or what age is your dog? But the book is about bridging those gaps in communication. And we preempted this book very quickly because my whole team completely fell in love with it. We just thought it was brilliant. And then we got Ericka to come in and meet us in our offices, which used to be in Ealing. And she came in with little Wiener here. And actually, I had to keep saying to people, remember to say hello to the author, because Wiener stole the show. I think that was utterly charmed by him. But it's been an absolute joy to work with Ericka through this novel, to, from the cover brief to the editing. And it's just wonderful to see it going out today into the world and to see the absolute love that we're getting for it. So I want to say to you, Ericka, cheers, congratulations.
Thank you.
Happy publication day to you and to Dog Days.
Thank you very, very much. Cheers. I know that Katie's just joined in as well, so raising a glass.
Fantastic. Thank you, Kirsty. That was wonderful. Very kind words. And the last thing I'm going to do now, and I'm going to stum, because I'm handing over to Jules. Jules is the wonderful author. We've got 2 or 3 great authors in Tring, and Jules is one of those. And she's very kindly offered to do not just this one, but we've got Jill Mansell. Is it next week? No. So I'm so looking forward to that as well. So Jules, without further ado, hand over to you.
Well, I have to say this is a real treat, because when I saw Sarah's new book was out, I actually asked her editor if I could have an advance copy, because I've been a big fan for a long time. Absolutely adore Sarah's book. Sorry.
Thank you.
And I was sent a copy of Ericka's, and from the moment I opened the front page, I completely fell in love with your writing. It's I've got it here, and it's one of they're both the sort of books that I read really carefully, because I couldn't bear to break the spines, because they're just such gorgeous books. So I've read them. I don't know if everybody else has, but could you just start, Ericka, by telling people a little about this wonderful book and all the gorgeous characters and lovely dogs in it? Have I got the same copy as you?
I think you do. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. My copy probably got tea stains and all sorts.
Mine's got little sticky things where I just found wonderful phrases, and I thought I've got to mark that.
That's very kind. Thank you. Dog Days is about 3 people going through 3 different challenges in their lives that they don't want to face up to or deal with or overcome, and they are aided by their dogs. Not all of them wanted a dog in the first place, but it's the unconditional love they receive that helps them through points in life that are unavoidable. That's my brief synopsis. I can do a longer one. I've learned to do like 10 words, 20 words. Shall I do another chunk, or is that okay?
Well, it would be quite interesting, because it's got a very one thing I was going to ask you both about is setting, because the settings come over really strongly in the books, and you describe presumably because it's where you live, you know, in great detail. But if you could just give listeners a little bit of background about why you've set it and why you decided to set it there.
I think the idea for Dog Days came to me when I was walking on the beacon, which I can see just out this window here. I can see the windmill that's in the book. So it was a natural place for me to set it. And I didn't picture Berkhamsted, which is sometimes when I write my books, I do picture where I'm from. I'm not very creative in that way. I find it easy to write about where you live, because you know the pathways and you know the parks. So I don't know whether you find the same thing, Sarah, but it's easier to plot where characters are going and stuff.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a love song to Brighton, because I've been here almost half my life, and it's an amazing city, and Rottingdean's not that well known. It's like a little nook to the side of it, and it was a lovely, you know, this has been my sanctuary for 15 years down here in Rottingdean, and it felt very natural to set it here.
It's always good to set a book if you really know it well, because if you get anything wrong, readers will soon tell you.
Oh yeah. And they like to tell you. Yes.
Oh yes, they do. In no uncertain terms, you got that bit wrong.
They told me Volks Railway closed down many years ago, and I wanted to say yes, it's reopened, but I thought no, and then they actually said, I've googled it, it's reopened, and I thought I know it has, but you just have to.
Yeah. And Sarah, could you tell us a little bit about Rescue Me, which
yes,
it's hardback now, isn't it?
it's out in hardback, ebook and audiobook, with paperback in the summer. So Rescue Me, my kind of really brief elevator pitch was kind of Margot's given up on love, Will's afraid to love, and Blossom loves everybody except squirrels. And it's basically the heroine, Margot. She's 36, and at the start of the book, her cat has broken up with her. So she was a cat person, and she's in this place in her life where she's 36, and she really wants a family, not just because she's 36, but because of things that you learn later on in the story. And she's just prepared to compromise. She's prepared to settle. She doesn't need to love a guy. He just needs to be kind, and she'll have children with him. But in the meantime, she does need some kind of love. So she decides that she's going to go and adopt a dog. And meanwhile, there's Will, who's just come back from New York after this kind of really successful stratospheric career as an investment banker. And he's pretty much had a nervous breakdown, done a year of therapy, but he's finding it really hard to break up with his therapist. So he kind of agrees that he can forge an emotional connection with somebody, and that somebody is a dog. So they meet at this rescue kennel, and they both fall in love with this staffy called Blossom, who's been really sort of badly neglected and abandoned. So they reluctantly, because they can't stand each other, agree to be co-parents, and things happen along the way.
So that it's really interesting. In both books, you both have characters who are with therapists at the quite early on in the book, and I was reading both and thinking that their dogs save them. And I was just wondering if that was kind of a metaphor for the times we're in, because I've seen lots and lots of people with new puppies and more people with dogs than ever before. And so I think your books have come out at a brilliant time. It's sort of people seem to have discovered dog love. But have you found that dogs in your life have really rescued you?
Well, yeah, because Rescue Me was inspired by my rescue staffy Betsy, who I fostered to adopt 6 days after my dad had died. You know, they always tell you not to sort of take on a big commitment, but actually it was that case, you know, that kind of cliche of us rescuing each other, because you know, she'd been picked up as a stray, and she'd had like a litter of puppies like days before, so she'd been used for backyard breeding, and she was just sort of shut down. I was shut down, but I didn't realize it. And yeah, for the first 6 months though, you know, she was this really submissive dog, and we'd go to the park and she'd get on her back whenever another dog approached. And then after 2 weeks, she was like, hang on a second, I'm a staffy, you know, I can do what I want. And so, you know, in Rescue Me, I kind of just basically based it on Betsy's kind of emotional arc for the first 6 months that I had her, where I just had, like, to all intents and purposes, a cliche kind of devil dog, just because really she was so scared of other dogs and hated being on a lead. And after sort of 6 months and me kind of crying and going, what have I done? My shoulder is permanently wrenched. Oh my God, if I let her off the leash, she's going to eat somebody. She just, you know, she just changed into this delightful, happy, kind of imperious, loving dog. And it was just so rewarding to sort of, you know, and it was such a privilege to sort of be in sort of, you know, some way responsible for that. There's just sort of something about dogs. I think it's that just thing that there's no judgment with them. So as much as sort of Betsy blossomed, I felt myself kind of just recover from this kind of really sad place that I'd been in.
That's lovely. There's actually a line in Ericka's book which really struck a chord, and of course I didn't mark it at the time, and it's something about when one of the characters comes home and the dog are just completely full of unconditional love, and you said something like, it's like the holy sanctuary coming home to, and I just thought it was a really lovely line. So the dogs in your book, because there are 3 or 4, I can't remember now, are they based on real dogs or?
They are based on real dogs. When I was younger, I spent a lot of time at my aunt's house, and we looked after her next door neighbour's big yellow Labrador called Sandy, and he had a pink nose and he had brown eyes, and he was incredible, and he loved me so much. Just to see me, he would bang his tail on my aunt's boiler and the clang it would make, you know. And I sort of vowed when I grew up and I had children of my own, they would have this white Labrador with pink nose and brown eyes. So we've got Buddy. But I love Buddy, but Fitz, although Fitz is based on Buddy, Fitz is really intelligent, and my lovely Labrador is a simple beast. He's not bright. You know, you see these kind of Labradors that, you know, get the washing out of the machine and do snazzy things. Buddy, nothing at all. Like, he's still like, oh, it's my tail. You know, like he's quite daft, and he's very nervous about going up a step or anything really. But Fitz, I wanted him to, it was like pimp my dog. So Fitz is very much Buddy, and then this is based on Poppy is based on this, and I love her. See how docile she looks here, head hung down, tail up. This is the hardest thing I've ever done, and I've had 3 children in 3 years. But this small 60-centimetre sausage dog is yeah, I love you. Yeah, I do. She knows. Obviously, I'm speaking about her. And
Oh,
Poppy was perfect. She was a perfect dog to give to a grumpy old man who didn't like dogs, didn't like small dogs, didn't like yappy dogs, didn't want a dog. There is no better dog to give a non-dog lover than a dachshund, because they're so hard work. So she felt like a natural choice. And then also on my lap, because I'm an idiot that can't say no, is a Brussels Griffon. So please do Google this if you can't see this gorgeous face. He's a bit shy then. Can you see?
good grief. Yes.
Bundle of fluff.
He
So
was.
good.
She little currant eyes.
Look. So this was my publishing present to myself. I bought another dog.
Yes, it's almost as cute as the dog that I had on our Twitter page outside our shop today. Most
Cuter.
extraordinary little miniature poodle, I think is the definition. But there's a question from James. What writers most inspire you? I'm going to ask both of you actually. So Ericka,
Sarra,
you first.
you go, Sarah, while I think of my answer.
No,
Okay,
you
Sarra.
know what I think of my answer.
Okay, I know this. So writers that just blow my mind. Helen Paris, she was on my Faber course with me, and she wrote a book called Lost Property. And she read the first chapter out loud on like the second week. And I remember thinking, like, I am sitting next to a genius. And her book comes out in the summer. Word perfect, story perfect, character perfect. Lissa Evans, Old Baggage. Mattie's in my heart. She's just, I love her. Small Pleasures, Claire Chambers. Anything by Catherine Heine. I don't know whether you've been lucky enough to get Early Morning Riser, but and obviously Anne Tyler. Anne Tyler is, I could talk the whole session on Accidental Tourist, but those authors create such beautiful worlds around characters, not around plot and not around big events, but they weave you in. Claire Lombard-Duke, I think she did The Most Fun We Ever Had, and Mary Beth Keane. Again, these people that create characters that stay with you, and they invest with you. One author, I'm going to pronounce it wrong, so I'm just going to say the book is called A Little Life, because I don't want to say the name wrong. But that book was a massive inspiration to me for Dog Days, because obviously one storyline goes quite sharply downhill, and the author of that book wanted to set out to write a book that just actually got worse and worse and worse and worse, which I think she did really successfully with A Little Life. And it's that dedication. Shuggy Bain, I could go on. I'll just talk about people. Those are the kind of authors that make me think, yes, this is why I love writing and reading.
Oh, Sarra,
To you, Sarra.
you've had a bit of time to come up with a good answer.
Yeah. So there's a lot of authors that I like, and I was like nodding my head because with Ericka, because I really sort of love Lissa Evans, and I just, I would love to be able to write as well as Lissa can.
Lissa's the one. We've had an interview with Lissa, and I got that feeling of being in the presence of greatness. Honestly,
I play Scrabble with her as well. Like when we're
person.
not in lockdown, do not play Scrabble with that.
I'm so jealous. I've never been invited to play Scrabble with Lissa.
But I think authors that I'm really sort of influenced by are probably sort of like our blessed Marion Keyes and Holly Bourne, and for a very specific thing that they do, and they do it so well, and it's so difficult, is just mixing kind of real emotional depth with humor, and just doing it so perfectly that it never feels jarring. It never feels that the humor is deflecting away from kind of like the emotional honesty and sort of truths in their books. And it's that thing that a lot of people look down on kind of chick lit or commercial women's fiction. I think that what commercial women's fiction does, and does so well, is just sort of tackles those dark things that a lot of people experience in life, whether it's sort of grief or kind of infertility or infidelity, but to just be able to sort of blend it with humor and have that kind of amazing light and shade. And when I first sort of started writing adult novels, because I started with teen, Marion Keyes' Rachel's Holiday was just such a great influence on me. I mean, my editor actually said, have you read any Marion Keyes? And then I just went on this kind of glorious binge. And I'm really excited because I think that she's actually writing a sequel to Rachel's Holiday now. So
I-
that's one to
I
look
love
out for.
Rachel's Holiday. It's one of my favourite books.
Luke is the best boyfriend I've never had.
That's one of my go-to books when I'm feeling unwell. I must have read it several times. But another one is Sarra's, actually. You Don't Have to Say You Love Me. That's one of my all-time favourite books.
Oh, thank
Absolutely
you.
amazing. And it deals with some really interesting issues. I just think it's absolute classic. And if anyone's not read it, I highly recommend it. That's one of my comfort reads when I'm not feeling very well. But you were talking about characters, which Marion Keynes does so brilliantly. But the characters in Dog Days are all fantastic. Not necessarily likable, which I think is a real talent, a real skill to pull off. Because, I mean, George, do you want to tell people a bit more about George?
I love George so much.
So did I.
George is he's a bit like Marmite. Like you either love George and you get that he's actually a really decent man. He's just broken and he's reactive. But honestly, George is grief with arms and legs and a mouth that talks, and that's what he is. I mean, I and some of the people on this Zoom call tonight, and I don't want to get upset about it, but I know the people that are supporting me. We've lost some extraordinary people in very extraordinary, unhappy ways. And my experience of grief and their experience has been sudden, kind of very much without warning. There's no, this is happening, this is going to be a relief when it happens. It's always bang, this person that you saw yesterday isn't here today. So my experience of grief has been just not believing it, not wanting to believe in it, rejecting it, being angry about it. And so George is that feeling. George is everything you feel when you love somebody and they're not there. So this love turns into a weight and an anger and a confusion. And but also, to be honest, George is a grumpy old man, and I kind of love him for that, you know. And I was very conscious not to, at the end of the book, have him skipping away and not swearing anymore, because that's who George is. And I wanted to write a challenging character that you kind of wanted to wring his neck and make him a cup of tea. So I think I love him. He's still with me, George. He sometimes when I see something, George's voice will come in my head and have a reaction to it.
Emily asks, is who is your favourite character in the book? Is that George?
My favourite character?
Yeah.
I do love George, but Dan and Atticus, I really, that storyline, that love story, I did really enjoy. I have to say, I mean, George and Betty, George and Betty banter quite a lot, like my mum and my dad, and my husband and I. We do have that kind of, you know. So I enjoy that. I like writing the humour, but Dan and Atticus, it was a romantic love story, and actually, I really enjoyed writing that. I really did. It was lovely, sad, but so lovely. So I think my heart maybe belongs to Atticus.
I have to say he was one of my favourite characters, but he was like an eel. You never quite pinned him down. He always slithered away. And I just thought the way that he slithers away was really well done. I just wondered what the inspiration for that character was, because he seemed so real in some ways and so unreal in others.
We lost a friend to suicide. An amazing, extraordinary person, just lit up a room and just full of life and love, and made you feel like he really wanted to see you and was so pleased you were there. And I wanted to create a character like that, but not the person that I had known, because that's not my place and that's not my story, but the impact. And I wanted to create a character that challenged mental health in that way, where you don't really know somebody and you don't know what goes on behind closed doors. So I wanted to write a character that you fall in love with, and then you understand things are not perhaps how they always seem.
And Sarra, Do you have a favourite character in Rescue Me? Because I absolutely fell in love with Sage. I thought she was absolutely wonderful because she was no holds barred. She was a bit like, what I really liked about George was that you knew he was completely politically incorrect, but he never said anything really, really offensive. But he just thought it. And we just knew that he was cross with everybody. And what I liked about Sage was she had that teenage, no holds barred, no filter. She was going to say whatever she liked, which I love that in a character.
Sage is Will's younger half sister, so there's also that real sort of generational gap between, you know, Will, who's late 30s, and then having this kind of like 18-19-year-old who just thinks she knows everything, but sort of still goes out, you know, in winter without, you know, a coat. But my favorite character in Rescue Me was obviously Blossom, because it was Betsy, and it was, you know, so Betsy kind of died like 3 years ago, so for me it was just a really sort of lovely opportunity to kind of relive like all those days that we had together, all those sort of like walks we did around Highgate Woods and Ali Pali where I live, and just sort of like be with her again, because she was such a character. She was like a little local kind, it was like walking a rock star, because, you know, just everybody knew her in the area. So I'd be walking along, just completely ignored, and be, hi Betsy. So I used to sort of walk her in the grounds of Ali Pali, and there's a primary school, and we'd see like one childminder, and they'd always bring some toast and Marmite for Betsy to have every morning. And
Nice.
you know, so it was, yeah, you know, so it was really sort of nice to kind of write her a love letter in a way, actually. Yes, yeah. So yeah, you know, it's always sort of, you know, I enjoy like all my characters because they just live in your head for like the year that you're writing the book. But yeah, you know, Blossom was, you know, just an absolute delight from start to finish.
But Margot was a gorgeous character as well. She was just so full of life. And one of the things I really loved about her was, well, her and Will, their homes reflected their personality so strongly. I mean, I completely fell in love with Margot's flat.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, I was just, well, as you know, as you've already said, I'm just obsessed with property. I mean, I just, you know, I spend far too long on Rightmove. So I always kind of, you know, when I'm sort of building a character, I do start with where they live. And it was, you know, it's just a really sort of nice opportunity to live somewhere where you don't live, you know. But Margot lives in this kind of little basement flat in Highgate on this square. And it's just, you know, she's a maximalist. It's not kind of Spartan, clean lines. She hasn't Marie Kondoed anything. Just, it's, you know, brightly coloured, and every just surface is just full of kind of tchotchkes. And she's one of those women that, you know, before she can get into bed at night, she has to remove the 20 different pillows and cushions and throws and bedspreads. So kind of where they both live is kind of like a real reflection of kind of what their personalities are like. So Will is truly sort of Spartan, and he just sort of lives in, you know, this all white flat. He hasn't got any stuff until sort of Blossom comes along, and all of a sudden there are kind of like rugs and throws and kind of half-eaten pig's ears sort of dotting about the place.
Fantastic, match made in heaven. So the famous Helen Paris, who Ericka referred to, has been messaging, and in fact Fran Quinn then came up with a message. Helen Paris, heart, heart. Helen, you're getting some fans here. Helen's message is thank you both for talking about your books, and congratulations. Ericka, there are so many gorgeous aspects to your book, the writing, the characters. One of the things I love is the form, the 3 complete but beautifully subtle overlapping stories. Long question, Helen. This is fine.
That's my Helen.
She's gone into author mode, hasn't she, with her question?
Yeah, she has.
When did this come to you, and how challenging was it to sustain?
2 things. One, remember that name, Francesca Quinn, because she is going to be huge. She was also on our Faber course, and she is, oh my God, she's extraordinary. So do remember that.
I hosted her book launch, so yeah, no.
The and how did the stories come to me? I honestly don't know. I'd like to say I plotted and planned, but I didn't. I saw that Curtis Brown were doing a academy, Curtis Brown Creative, I think it's called, and it said like 1,500 words to enter, and I honestly, George just fell out, and the first chapter of George is more or less exactly as I wrote it that first time. And then I don't know where Dan came from. I think that I was possibly writing my own journey through grief, and I don't have OCD, but I'm a horrible Virgo, really finicky and miserable, and you've missed that bit, and that's not good enough. So Dan felt quite natural to me. And Lizzie, and my friend Lindsay, who's on here tonight, I know that this is something she feels strongly about, and my cousin Anne, all women, if men do something wrong, we go, oh, that's a man for you. But if a woman does something undesirable, we have to label them as mad or bad. They have to fall into this camp because that makes it socially acceptable for us. So I wanted to write a really complicated female figure who wasn't mad and she wasn't bad. She was just human, because that's what we are, men and women, we're human. So I think what I wanted to write fell out in these characters. That was a really long answer, I'm sorry.
No, that's allowed. That's allowed entirely. And I got a message from Alison Barrow. She's yes, I think Ericka knows Alison, as do I. For both authors, did you learn anything about yourself while writing the book? And if so, what was it? Start with Sarra.
I learned that I could do heartwarming because I've written a lot of books, but I don't tend to. They sort of tend to be quite layered, and I hadn't written sort of like a rom-com for ages. I'd done a couple of historical. I'd written a modern day version of Vanity Fair. But it is that kind of thing of like you write the story that you want to write rather than thinking about genres. So it was like I can be optimistic and I can believe in love and I can, so that was quite nice because, for me, 2020 was sort of really hard, but 2019 was actually a much grimmer year for me. And I'd been sort of really ill and I'd sort of started a book and then abandoned it, which I've never done before. I've been sort of writing for years, but I had to just abandon a book about 40,000 words in because it wasn't working. So I just sort of came from this place of just sort of, to writing sort of, just finding the book that I really sort of wanted to write that just, was just, it was lovely and it was sort of joyful and it made me feel sort of joyful writing it when I'd been sort of stuck in sort of such a kind of, sort of, sort of melancholy. I tend towards my family. I wouldn't say we're depressive, but we do have a melancholic streak and I had been living there for sort of quite a while. So, yeah.
I've got a question. Michael Newton.
My brother.
Is he? He feels like he's done this for the first time. The way he's messed.
Yeah, my brother's definitely done this for the first time. Thanks for doing this, Michael.
You sent me a question. Did you get my text?
Yeah, sorry.
Bless you, Michael. Well done for trying. But anyway, Michael says to Ericka, tell everyone about Aunt's silly dog Katrina and our dog Jess. Congratulations.
Thanks, Michael. Thanks. Please bring up more things from our childhood. Katrina was, my dad had a very aggressive Jack Russell called Jess that loved my dad, but would, like those Jack Russells in the 80s where their teeth were up against the van window. But Dad, for Dad, she was docile, but for the rest of us, she was quite vicious. We don't know who she mated with. We weren't pleased with her, but it was definitely of the beagle variety. So if you put together a Jack Russell and a beagle, you get a really unattractive puppy, actually. And nobody wanted them. They actually all ended up in like landlord's pub garden. Those kind of dogs, And Katrina went to my lovely aunt, who, as I told you, we looked after Sandy, but Sandy wasn't her dog. He was our neighbour's dog. So yes, my aunt had Katrina. who was a lovely, lovely dog, but hideously ugly. And Jess, I've told you about Jess. Short story, very incredible. We went on holiday to Cornwall. We left Jess with some neighbours. My brother will probably tell you the address. I can't remember what it was, but I know it's a significant distance from our house in Northchurch. And Jess escaped, and following our car tyre scent, she got to the bottom of our road. Then she got run over, but it's okay. She didn't die. We got a phone call in Cornwall saying, your dog's here. She tried to run home. She's been run over. Do we have your permission to put her down? And my dad said, you know, whatever to do. And in the morning, we got this phone call saying she's made it through the night, and they fixed her leg, and she went on and lived a lot longer. So she is, you know, she was an amazing dog. So thank you, Michael.
Very good. Jules, over to you.
I just was interested to know how your writing process is, because of course I'm an author as well. And with your first book, you said that you didn't plan it. I'm not a planner at all. I'm absolutely hopeless. I just lurch from one chapter to the next and hope I'm going to get it in the right order. What's your sort of writing day like? And were you doing this in isolation, or were you trying to work it with a job as well?
This is to me.
Yes.
I do say I didn't plan, but I have a wonderful friend called Judith Kingston, who hopefully is on here tonight. Look out for her as well. She's going to be a poet that changes the world. She's wonderful, and she's a fantastic woman as well. She came to me with this thing called a beat sheet. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's like Blake Snyder's beat sheet. It's, if you're writing a play or a screen thing, it talks you through the stages of the play. So introduction to characters, split into two, Dark Night of the Soul, All is Lost, Storm the Castle. And that I owe so much of her giving me that to the success of Dog Days, because I did pin each chapter to these moments, these beats, to give the book a tempo. So I do that with my books, but I can only start doing that after a certain point. And I think the success of Dog Days and the fact that those 3 stories work is massively due to that beat sheet that she showed me. So a bit of a, you know, you can use it as closely as you want to or as far apart, but it is really good at saying, actually, at this point in your book, you kind of need something to happen now. Your character needs to start progressing now, or we need a twist or a turn. So I found that quite amazing. And I don't write on my own because I constantly have 2 dogs on me, children coming in and out, and people knocking on the door. But I was a columnist for a long time, so I had to kind of fire out 1,000 words a week. So I do tend to write maybe a chapter a day, 1,500 words each time I write, and then I will reread that the next day and carry on from there. Sarra?
Sarra.
I'm an outliner, and it kind of makes me cry when people say that they don't outline. It's just, but so basically, in an ideal world, I've percolated an idea in my head for about a year while I'm writing something else. So then it's kind of, it comes to this thing where I do my outline, which is just basically I download what's been in my head for a year. So it's loose chapter outline, snatches of dialogue, little scenes, little sort of phrases, and it means that I don't start with a blank page. But I bang out my first drafts when we're not in a pandemic really quickly. So I'm a burst writer, so I switch off the Wi-Fi for 2 hours and 15 minutes, and I know that I can write at least 2,500 words.
You're prolific, Sarra.
It's just, you know, I've just been doing this for so long, and I worked on magazines. So, you know, when you've got a production editor screaming at you, where's your copy? So within 6 to 8 weeks, I should have a first draft.
Oh, really?
But then I do all my work on the second draft. So the outline that I had and the story that I thought I was writing, it's like, oh, I wasn't writing that at all. And actually, it's about this, it's not about that. So I do a really forensic kind of edit and rewrite on my second draft, where I sort of see this whole other story emerge from the wreckage. And then I do a third draft, which is kind of when you sprinkle on the magic dust. And then I deliver to my editor and agent, who then make me kind of almost incandescent with rage when they refer to it as my first draft. I'm like, no, but no, I've done 3 drafts. So that is kind of, it's quite a forensic kind of torturous process, but that is what works for me, really. And so within that thing, it's like you say, you kind of know the beats to hit, and there's sort of little rules that you pick up along the way. But yeah, that's kind of like the writing process is, you know, it is just about bum on seat, you know, fingers on the keyboard, really. I don't think there's kind of magic to it. It's just kind of showing up every day until you...
It is amazing how different people's responses to that question are. I mean, who did we, Space Opera, it's Helen Fisher. Her answer, she did a grid on a big white sheet of 80 boxes, and every time she did 1,000 words, she coloured it in. So I
like that. I'm going to do that. Thank you.
Organised way of looking at your kind of, this is how much I've got to do, and that's where I've got to get to, and so I can understand the joy of that. And who was the other one? Anne Cleves. You say, you know, what's your process? You know, she famous author. She faces a white sheet of paper with nothing in her head and just starts a story, and she discovers it whilst at the same time the reader does, which is an extraordinary process. But I can't imagine doing that. Jules, you're a brilliant author. What do you do?
Hey, Jules.
I use for word counting an online system called Pacemaker. Works out for you, because I'm really strict. I have to have a daily word count, and it's anywhere between 1,500 to 3,000 words a day. It just depends on my deadlines. I mean, last year I kind of ended up a little bit overstacked and ended up working, this sounds crazy, but at any one time in the year I was always working on 1 or 2 books. So by the end of the year I'd worked on 6. I haven't written them all, but it was a little bit crazy. But
with the pros here tonight, Enzo.
I'm very much with Sarra that it's bum on seat and fingers on keyboard. And I mean, people say, do you believe in writer's block? So I'm going to ask you both that question. Do you believe in because I feel you just got to write through it. And
yeah, absolutely. I don't believe in writer's block. I just think, you know, you just keep doing it. I always say typing becomes writing. You just have to keep, you know. And I think also because I have that first draft that I know I'm going to chuck out, it doesn't matter that it's awful and terrible, because I just know that I'm going to get a do-over in the second draft. So it's quite freeing to just write the most shit thing that I can.
No, because I really love writing. So I don't always write things that are perhaps exactly as they should be, or right for a second book or third book or 10th book or whatever. But no, I'm lucky, and maybe one day it'll run out. But if I put my fingers on the keys, stuff seems to come out. I don't know what it's going to be. And no, I don't guess writer's block, because in my head I'm always thinking, oh yeah, I do have a lot of ideas, and I still write a bit of poetry. Not that anyone's ever going to read it, and some short stories, and I just love I love the process. And even when it doesn't come off quite right, which is hard and it is disheartening, I don't think I could stop to do it now. It's the one thing for me when I'm at this desk at this keyboard and I'm writing. It's the only time I'm aware of nothing else in the world. It's the only time 3 hours can go past and I've not looked up, I've not had a sip of drink, and I've never found anything else that can do that for me. So I hope now, I'm probably going to get writer's block like tomorrow now to curse myself, but fingers crossed, no.
I've got email. An email came in from Lindsay Waters. First email was watching with the boys, Eric. Love Twinsy. But her question, let's see what her question, who do you imagine reading your books when you're writing? That's a question for both of you, but Ericka, you go first.
Hello, Lindsay, I love you. I don't, because if I think about my mum or my dad or my brothers reading the books, I just cringe and I can't do it. No, I don't. Do you know, I was so fixated on writing a book that was good enough to get a publishing deal. I remember not long after I'd met the amazing, wonderful Kirsty, I said to James, shit, people are going to read this now. It was like when I got pregnant at work, I was like 27. And I was really embarrassed. And James advised, because they'll know that I have sex. James was like, yeah, but you're 27. Like, what's wrong with you? But I didn't want anyone to know I'd gotten pregnant. So, no, I think if I started thinking about who's going to read it, I would never write again, ever.
No.
Especially if you've got to write a sex scene, Sarra. I love, but you were really good. And how you wrote it was just so fantastic. I love the whole sports bar bit. And I thought it was so fantastic. But I can't think about my brothers if I'm trying to make, so Dan and Atticus, two gays having sex. I can't think about. I couldn't. I'm flustered even thinking about it. Sorry, you answer.
I'm waiting for any comments to come in from the chat.
I just don't, because I know they will.
Sarah, who's reading your book as your who are you imagining?
I don't imagine a reader. So that whole kind of process when I'm writing, it is kind of a relationship between me and the story that I'm telling. And I just try and shut out kind of all the chatter, all the white noise. I think it's only sort of, when I'm refining it that, I've got some readers that I've had really all the way through my career. Sort of one of them, I've been sort of tweeting the last couple of days. They've read me since I was writing at just 17. And I don't imagine them sort of like reading it, but I do just sort of think, oh my God, I hope they like this one, because, they've always had been so supportive and had such sort of faith in my books that you just don't kind of want to disappoint them. But I think if you start thinking about that when you're actually writing, you're just going to sort of drive yourself mad, really. It is kind of weird when you've finished though, and then it's a proof, and you just sort of think, oh, people are going to sort of read this. I'm never embarrassed about the sort of sex scenes. I just sort of feel really strongly that sort of every book I write should have a real kind of like dirty bit to it.
Good on you. Good on her.
But
the older I get, the more bawdy I get. Yeah, loads of sex in books.
I think it goes back to just being a teenager and just that kind of thing of just obsessed with sex and just all the books would just fall open at the dirty bit. So I just sort of like to.
I remember when Forever came out by Judy Blume. I don't know whether you guys remember that, and it was especially funny for me because it's a book about a first time, very loving. Judy Blume's a wonderful author. Catherine and Michael. Bit weird because my brother's called Michael, but weirder. Michael named his penis Ralph, which is the name of my uncle. So everyone at school was kind of giggling about it, and I was like, oh, this is damaging me forever. But Sarah, you did it really, really, really well, and hats off to you. My thing was the use of the C word. George does swear, and he does use the C word, and I was kind of brought up in a house where take the power out of words by using them. So rather than being offended by swearing and by language, just kind of take the sting out. So it's almost an affectionate term in our family. So for me, it wasn't a very big deal for George to drop the C-bomb, but I did have quite a few readers say, I find this really offensive. But I did think it was necessary. It was he wanted to shock people and upset them, and he did.
You have to, readers have to understand that it's the character, not you. I've had some reviews where they said, oh, but the language was disgraceful. And one person said, I hope she doesn't speak like this in life.
And I was like, don't worry, I do all the time.
In this instance, it was the character, and sometimes the character dictates. But what I was thinking about, when you're writing, whether you think about anybody reading it, that's the editor's job, I think. I just remember one of the books I wrote last year, I had a stray dog in it, and my editors, the stray dog, this lady had got too much on her plate and couldn't take it home, so she left it in the park, and my editor said, you can't do that, the readers will hate you, you've got to take it.
I'm a bit cross with you right now, actually, Jules.
Yes.
wrong event to admit that, I suspect.
I used the C word. I didn't abandon a rescue dog in a park.
It's like that website, isn't it, called Does the Dog Die? So that if you're watching a film and it's got a dog in it, and that's going to be your trigger, you can go onto this website and find out if the dog's going to be all right.
Brilliant.
You know what? Got the dog in the end. It was just she was reluctant. Character.
I have to say on that, actually, Kirsty, just pretty quickly, Kirsty is one of the most amazing things about Kirsty, how thorough she was, because Lizzie has a lot of facts in the book, and I reference a lot of kind of older stuff because I think I stopped taking any new information in about 1991. So my sayings and phrases and people I admire are still like 25 years out of date. And Kirsty was so meticulous about making sure I wasn't ever going to get tripped up by, she sort of said, oh, you've had the sunset go down, but it's the wrong time of year. And actually, those things I would never think of. She was so incredible at that kind of work. And, it was really, because I wouldn't ever think of that. But I know I want the sky to be pink. 5 minutes later I want it to rain. I would never think about those logistics. So when you talk about your editor's job, that's an amazing thing they do that perhaps isn't seen.
Yeah.
I'm getting. I tell you who's come back. Michael's back. I'm liking Michael. Ask Ericka about Molly. Molly, we're running out of time, so give us a quick one line about Molly, please.
Michael's going to the shop now. You know that, don't you? He's going to be in all the time. He's really handsome and lovely. We love him. Molly was another dog we had. My parents got a dog. Well, Jess died. Dad said, I don't ever want to get another dog. So me and Mum immediately went out and got another dog. And my dad was like, it's dead to me. I won't walk it. I won't speak with it. But we used to keep Fussell's condensed milk in the fridge to eat a spoonful of it about 2 a.m. because there's nothing better. And I went down to get a spoonful of Fussell's condensed milk, and my dad was down there getting a spoonful of Fussell's condensed milk, and I saw him bend down to the fire guard. You know, you used to get a dog in the 80s and put a fire guard around it. And he said, well, who's a nice little chap then? And Molly went on to just be, oh, she was wonderful. In fact, my brothers and my parents are probably sobbing about Molly right now, but fantastic dog.
Fantastic. Question from Margaret. She's one of our regular customers. Congratulations to you both. Listening to you, I can't wait to read your books. I love dogs, and I have a Betsy. Are you able to lay down your characters when you finish your books, or do they become your friends? And are you going to be writing a sequel to this? This is the questions both of you. Sarra, you give an answer to that.
It's quite callous, you know. They're just everything to me for a year, and then I'm like, see ya, bye. You know, because then, you know, you start another book, and then you just kind of, it's just so kind of immersive. And it is, you know, people do get in touch and sort of want to know if you're going to write a sequel to sort of, you know, a book that you wrote 12 years before, and it's just like, who, what, no. I think I'm just always attracted by like the shiny new characters and all their kind of like deep issues around commitment and stuff. So so it's a no, and it's a no for me.
Fantastic.
I think fiction, you've given your characters a perfect arc, so their story is done.
Yeah,
there isn't, and I'd say the same in Dog Days. Those characters have all had the perfect story and emotional journey.
I would like to give George a cameo, maybe in another book. I'd like to have George like kind of have a walkthrough on stage somewhere. I'd like George to appear. No, my characters are still there actually. I sometimes write a letter from George. Just I think they kind of stay with me. But you know, this is the beginning of my journey. You guys are pros. I'm sure that in a couple of years' time I'll be like, oh, Dan who cares? You know, but so they're still very much my babies because they're part of what got me to this amazing thing. So I'm learning a lot tonight, girls.
I do bring characters back.
Yeah.
Minor characters.
Well, look in Neighbours. How many times did Harold die and just reappear again? It can be done.
I think it's kind of cute when you have like a little Easter egg in your book. So you do sort of just, you know, so if somebody's like read all my books, they'll recognise, you know, somebody like a fleeting kind of mention of somebody else. And what's fun about that is that you're then seeing that character not as you saw them when you wrote them, but through the lens of like another character who sort of brings all a completely sort of different perspective. So I kind of, that is all, I think it's quite sweet to have those little in jokes with your readers.
I think
honestly, we've only got 6 minutes left. Jules, do you want to fill in with a couple of your questions, and I've got another two I'll fill in towards the end.
Right, I think I've covered quite a lot, but I did write some questions.
Let me throw one from James then. James, what would your desert island book be? Which, assuming, I mean, I don't know, maybe Sarra, you've already done desert island discs. I don't know, but what book would you choose? I'd
cheat and say it's a series, so I get to take all the books in the series, and it would be the Casualette Chronicles by Elizabeth Jane Howard minus book 5. I just think it's just, they are just the perfect series of books. There's just everything I love. So it's kind of like posh, kind of aristocratic family, big house in the country, Second World War, sort of intrigue, affairs, unhappiness, flighty young women, sardonic men, just tick tick, tick, tick. And every time I sort of read the Casualettes, I get something sort of different from them. So that would be my pick as my desert island book.
Brilliant, thank you. Ericka, what would yours be?
Wind in the Willows.
Nice.
Yeah, because you can't read about mole and ratting. I know Helen's going to get this. I think she did her dissertation on Wind in the Willows. There is something so timelessly gorgeous about that book and the simplicity of it, and it always makes me smile. So I'm, Wind in the Willows. And I might spin off some fan fiction of my own if I'm also allowed to take a pen.
Good. Lindsay's finished with a really lovely question, actually, which is, it's the classic, what are you both working on next? So, Sarra, you must have something in...
Yeah, so, I mean, everything that I said about my writing process, ignore.
Okay.
It's been
Fine.
torturous, but it's taken me a whole year and I'm still not finished. I'm writing a book that doesn't really have a title even. It's called A London Love Story. And
Title?
it's okay. I don't think my editor loves it, but, I'm prepared to argue this case. So it was kind of really hard to start writing a book in 2020, not kind of knowing what the world was going to be like when I published. So I kind of went back, and it's kind of a real nostalgic thing. It starts in 1986 and it kind of ends in 2005. And it's about this couple that meet when they're teenagers, and they kind of have, this tumultuous friendship, but never really sort of get together until they do. And it's kind of told through tube stations. So when you kind of live in London, as I have done pretty much all my life, apart from 3 years in Brighton, Ericka.
Yeah, you did. Why did you leave, Zara?
Wow, to go back to London. So it's kind of depending on kind of where you live, where you're working, who you're seeing, where your friends are. Just these different tube stations take on different sort of significances throughout your life. And, I've just had things where I've been like sobbing my heart out on a tube train because I've just sort of broken up with somebody, and then felt a tap on my knee, and somebody that I haven't seen in years is like sitting opposite me going, "Are you all right?"
Oh, that's
so
nice.
So it's kind of a sort of a look at a sort of 20 sort of year relationship told through tube stations, but it's kind of more exciting than that. But I did have to do a lot of research into kind of what is the rolling stock on the Victoria line in sort of like 1991, which kind of killed my creative buzz.
And we're running out of time. Ericka, what's your what are you working on?
Not telling anyone, keeping up the sleeve. Not because I don't have loads of good ideas, obviously. No, I kind of I've got some ideas in my head. I've done some writing and written towards stuff and written around stuff, and I am always writing something. But I've learned that you're never quite sure what your next book is. So I don't want to say too much. I want to remain elusive and mysterious.
And Jules, what are you working on?
I'm taking diversion. I'm actually working on a historical novel at the moment set in World War II.
Oh, you're so clever, Jules. You guys are like, what am I with these people?
I do know about Jules' one, actually, yeah.
Are you enjoying the research, Jules?
Sorry?
Are you enjoying the research?
Unfortunately, yes. That's the big problem. I keep falling down rabbit holes, and I'd forgotten how much I love history. I mean, I did a history at university and English, and I very rarely read non-fiction as a rule. Well, I've got a stack of books and I just keep buying more. It's terrible.
No, I know the basis to your book, and it does sound certainly the history is amazing. Listen, we're 1 minute left. Jules, can I just hand over to you to give a little sort of last a 1 minute summary of both books and how much you enjoyed them?
Yes, so I can't recommend either book too highly. Dog Days is just so beautifully written. There are some laugh out lines, there are some tears, oh my goodness, there are some sad bits, there's some really clever funny bits. I mean, Lizzie is such a clever character. Where you got all that information, I don't know, but it's brilliant.
My husband, not me, husband.
Oh, they're always useful for something.
Very useful.
And Rescue Me is the most gorgeous story, and if you don't fall in love with Blossom, you've got the hardest heart on the planet.
Her description of the belly, your description of Blossom's belly, made me cry.
Oh,
Good.
I think all dogs are like that. They just have those vellum soft bellies that smell like corn snacks.
Here's one.
There's that there. That's a great note to finish on. Belly. Guys, it's been an absolute pleasure hosting this little charming hour. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you to all the audience. We've got a stack load of things. I don't know if I can do a brief advert. We've got a million events coming up, and I don't know where to start. Honestly, we're doing 2 or 3 a week. So if you're interested, just have a quick look at the Tring Book Festival website. There's an event page on there. Good. That's it. So congratulations, Ericka, on the launch of your book.
Thank you very much. Thank you
More
all.
to come. Sarra, you just carry on being a legend. And
Thank
thank you, Jules. Thank you so much for your help with this. And obviously, we've got Jill Mansell next week, so thank you for helping with her as well. And without further ado, thank you to Tabitha and to Alison and to everyone else who assisted at Transworld and everywhere else. So yeah, thank you, and see you very soon.
Bye. I've got to do the Zoom wave. Bye.
The Zoom wave.